Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the 2026 Senate map, and there are important updates, especially in the state of Georgia, that we're going to be covering in today's video that gives us more insight on what should we expect in the 2026 Senate elections. But before we get started with the map, make sure you guys are subscribed, click the bell so you don't miss out on my content, press the like button, share this video, don't forget we have memberships if you're interested. You can find a link to that in the description section. So let's begin. There are only truly 4 competitive battleground or swing states in the upcoming 2026 Senate race. Those states include Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, and Maine. You can throw in possibly Alaska, as well as New Hampshire. And the only reason why I mention Alaska is because let's just say there's a scenario in which Mary Patola, who recently just lost her, House race, representative from Alaska, by about 4 points in the last election, which is, by the way, is the only race I got wrong. I thought she would win, but she ended up losing. Now, if she runs for Senate as a Democrat, she would be strong, probably the strongest Democratic candidate up there. Doesn't mean she would flip that seat blue, but it means it'll be more competitive. Regardless, it's going to be more than likely red. But I leave that possibility open to make it more competitive, but that might not happen. And then New Hampshire, obviously, I believe it's going to be Maggie Hassan, strong Democrat. She won't be facing that much competition. That should be likely Democrat right off the map. So, as you can see here, the Republicans, right off the bat, without filling them in any swing states, they are already starting at 50 seats. So they already have a clear advantage based on that. This map clearly is made for them to win. So with that being said, they don't really have to flip anything, to be honest. They can win with a tie. 50-50, you have the vice president, obviously, J.D. Vance, the Republican. So they are, right off the bat, they automatically start with a 50-seat advantage without any swing states. Now, you give them one swing state, that would actually give them even more seats. I think it's possible they can win a state like Maine, or North Carolina, which we'll get to later. Now let's begin with Maine. Actually, Democrats in Maine are having problems. They're having candidate problems. Number one, their candidates are too old. Age is definitely a concern, and also they're not getting their stuff together. So with that, considering that, I believe Susan Collins would probably win re-election. I think she is the one running for a Maine Senate race in 2026. Susan Collins won't have that much opposition, similar to Maggie Hassan in New Hampshire. Therefore, I can see Susan Collins winning in 2026 by about, I would say, a lean margin of maybe around 4.5 percentage points if I were to estimate. Now, polls time and time again always show she's expected to lose her seats, and it always never happens. She always overperforms her polls. Same thing could happen this time. Obviously, we don't have any polls yet. We're still early on out. But Susan Collins, considering that her opponents are not good and the Democratic Party of Maine is having problems, I expect Susan Collins to win her seat. So I'm going to characterize Maine lean Republican. So Republicans would get 51 seats. And then you have Alaska. This is more than likely Republican in 2026 for the Senate race. Now, the only possibility would be close is if Mary Patola ends up running and she is the nominee. It would be closer, but she still would not win. Therefore, it's likely. Now, if she doesn't end up being the nominee on the Democratic side, it would be solid Republican. So it's not going to be close. And then I'm going to save Georgia for last because that's the most important. That's the main part of this video. We do have updates on the candidates that, what we expect. So let's skip that. Let's go to let's actually go to Michigan. So Mike Rogers lost in 2024 by about 0.3% to Alyssa Slotkin. He almost won that. He nearly won that. And that was with Donald Trump on the ballot. 2026, Donald Trump won't be on the ballot. So it would decrease his odds of winning. That was his best chance. He came within 0.3%. That was extremely close. If he does end up being the nominee again, he'll give it a second shot. And then, we've seen the same thing with Stacey Abrams. I'm not trying to compare him to Stacey Abrams, but I'm saying that because Trump's not on the ballot, it would still be very close because he's a strong Republican candidate in a state like Michigan. He almost won. So it's going to be close within 1 point, in my opinion, but he's going to end up losing. Democrats will win that by a tilt margin. It's going to be extremely close. And also, based on Trump's approval rating, it's not going to be looking good for Republicans in the midterm, specifically the House, not so much in the Senate because the map is so favored towards them. So Michigan tilt Democrat by under percentage point, similar to 2024. Not much of a shift there because Trump is not on the ballot this time. It's going to hurt Mike Rogers, and especially considering the incumbent party's disapproval, it might hurt him. But he's a very strong candidate. Don't get me wrong, came within 0.3%. So if he does win, I won't be shocked. And Pete Buttigieg announced a couple months ago that he's not going to run because he knows he's going to lose, which is good for Democrats. So that's why I give them the advantage in Michigan. Now, I won't be shocked if Mike Rogers wins. He's a very good Republican candidate. But because the incumbent administration, this is a midterm year, is Republicans, I expect Democrats to perform better. This is an off-year election. Yet again, Republicans perform better, when it's election season, and it's an off-year election. So then, it's not going to be that good for Republicans. And then you have North Carolina, and then we'll move on to Georgia lastly. So North Carolina, you have, I believe, Tom Tillis for the Republican. Last time he won, it was by barely anything. And then you have Roy Cooper, likely his Democratic opponent on the other side, who's expected to make his decision very soon. He publicly expressed interest in running. I believe he's going to run. And if he does that, I believe North Carolina will go to the Democrats in the 2026 Senate race. Tom Tillis will keep it close, but I believe that his opponent likely has the advantage. Roy Cooper is a strong Democrat that in a state that Trump won by about 3 points in the last election. And considering that he's won here before, he has a very strong base, and considering that we currently have a Republican administration, I would assume this is a midterm that the nation would flip in terms of who they support, and it would go from red to blue. Therefore, that's why Roy Cooper has the advantage. Unfortunately, Tom Tillis would lose. Therefore, North Carolina tilt Democrat by about 1.5 percentage points. That's a margin I give Roy Cooper. He's done it before. He has a decent track record. Tom Tillis, yet again, is a decent Republican candidate, but not the strongest. I think for him, even though he's decent, Roy Cooper is just too much for him. It's not so much that Tom Tillis is bad. That's not the case. It's just Roy Cooper is just that good of a Democratic candidate. And the nation is probably going to shift because literally Republicans control all three major branches of government, the House, the presidency, and the Senate. So I would expect, it would shift, a little bit more to the left, especially in the House race, which we're not covering in this video, but a little bit in the Senate as well. But Republicans will keep control. Now, Georgia, which is the main point of this video. We got some news here. Good news for Republicans, good news for Democrats, bad news for Republicans, pretty much. So Marjorie Taylor Greene announced, this is the good news for Republicans, is that Marjorie Taylor Greene announced she will not run, which is what Republicans were worrying about, because if she were to run, she would get absolutely crushed if she would end up being the nominee. Jon Ossoff would win by a likely comfortable margin against Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, that's not the case. That's the good news for Republicans, not so good news for Democrats. Now, the good news for Democrats is that Brian Kemp also, just like Marjorie Taylor Greene, announced that he will also not run for Georgia's Senate race. And a lot of the MAGA base is pissed off because they were relying on Brian Kemp to run because he's the strongest candidate that can go up against Jon Ossoff. So that's the good news for Democrats, is Jon Ossoff won't be going up against Brian Kemp. The good news for Republicans is that Marjorie Taylor Greene won't be running. So there's good and bad for both parties. I would say that still Democrats, Jon Ossoff specifically, has the advantage in this race. Because even if it's not Marjorie Taylor Greene, considering that it's definitely not Brian Kemp, there's not really another Republican candidate that can defeat Jon Ossoff. He is going to be reelected, in my opinion. He won the special election back in 2020, I believe. Jon Ossoff, I expect to win his race by a lean margin of about 3 to 4 percentage points. Georgia is a state that is shifting towards the left. Kamala Harris came within 2 points of winning the state. I understand Trump flipped it from blue to red, but the margin was not that much at all, considering that he won every other battleground state by much more than Georgia. He won Nevada by 3 points, guys. He won Florida by literally close to 14%. And Georgia, let alone, is just at 2 points. That's the margin for Donald Trump. North Carolina, Trump won it more. So that goes to show you the shifts in the trends demographically favors Democrats in Georgia, especially around the Atlanta area, the suburbs there specifically among African American voters. So I expect Georgia to be a blue state in the future. So that will go Democrat. just like North Carolina and Michigan in the 2026 Senate midterms. So the map as of right now officially is 48 Democrats, 52 Republicans. So the difference compared to 2024 and 2026 is that Democrats just gained one seat. That's it, not enough to win because the map is so favorable for Republicans. So Republicans go from 53 to 52, Democrats go from 47 to 48 from 2024 to 2026. Republicans will still retain control of the Senate. Democrats, they can win Georgia, they can win North Carolina, they can win Michigan, and they still will fall short. They can even win Maine, and they will still not win the Senate in 2026. That's unfortunate for them. And then they would probably win the House. I haven't made a prediction, but I would assume Democrats would most likely win the House in 2026. That's what they should definitely be focusing on. So this is my map as of right now. Let me know which swing states you agree with. There's only 4, or disagree with in the comment section down below. And why? One last final reminder is to subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss all my content. Press the like button, share this video. Don't forget we have memberships. You can find the links to that in the description section if you're interested. Thank you everyone for watching.